Namaste, Hamisha Khush Raho Bitiya. My name is Manisha Singh. Today I am teaching you changes during ripening of cheese, yield of cheese, manufacture of processed cheese, and accelerated ripening of cheese. Now let's start with the first topic, changes during ripening of cheese. Ripening of cheese refers to a physical and biochemical changes that take place in cheese when it is being held under specific and controlled conditions. Ripening process is considered as the most crucial step in cheese making as it has greater influence on the development of characteristic cheese flavor. Most varieties of cheeses require 6 to 12 months of ripening period depending on the type of the cheese and or conditions of the ripening. Two important parameters that influence cheese ripening are temperature and the relative humidity. Then ripening changes. A series of microbiological and biochemical changes that occur during ripening process are responsible for converting fresh, bland cheese curd into a final mellow, waxy product having a characteristic taste, aroma, and texture. Ample information with regard to contribution of milk components to maturation is available in most varieties of the cheeses due to breakdown of components by enzymes derived from rennet, milk, and added cheese starters to control the overall intensity of the flavor. First is physical changes. Gradual change occurs from rubbery curd to the rubbery curd of green cheese to the mellow, waxy ripened product due to proteolysis and velvetiness of cheese due to lipolysis. Next is chemical changes. The major chemical changes occurring during ripening are glycolysis, that is conversion of residual lactose into the lactic acid, and metabolism of lactate and citrate, yielding end products such as diacetyl, acetyl methyl carbinol, etc. Proteolysis, wherein proteins are broken down to the amino acids and whether to simpler compounds like amines, histamine, etc. And lipolysis, which involves hydrolysis of milk fats to fatty acids, further leading to the formation of the keto acids. Among these, proteolysis is considered to be the most important change occurring in the cheese and often used as a ripening index of the cheese. Next topic is the cheese yield. Cheese yield may be expressed as the quantity of cheese of a given dry matter produced from a given quantity of a milk with a defined protein and fat content, that is per kg per 100 kg of milk. Then actual cheese yield is often slackly expressed as the kilograms of cheese per 100 kilograms of milk or percent yield. Cheese yield is defined as the amount of cheese expressed in kilograms obtained from 100 kg of milk, and it is a very important parameter. The higher the recovered percentage of solids, the greater is the amount of cheese obtained. Therefore, gains in economic term. It is therefore obvious how to elaborate a rapid method that allows for an estimate before transformation of the final cheese yield on the basis of the composition of the raw material. In order to make a comparison between the forecast yield and the actual one, this would allow the cheesemaker to have a constant check on the efficiency of the operations and estimate the influence that some technological strategies can exercise on the entire process of cheese making. Equally important is the calculation of the effects that each milk component and in particular fat and casein can have on cheese yield in order to adopt a milk quality payment system that could remunerate each parameter for its actual value. Then the formulas of Venn-Slice. The formula of this is valid for cheddar, but it is the basis for formulas elaborated successively for different cheese varieties. According to this formula, the cheese yield is expressed in kg of cheese per 100 kg of milk and can be calculated as cheese yield is 0.93 g. G is the milk fat percentage plus C is the casein percentage minus 0.1 multiply by 1.09 multiply by 100 bracket close divided by 100 minus u is the moisture content of the cheese in percentage. 1.09 is a constant that considers the effect of salt and other solids, and 0.1 represents the presumed loss of casein. Varying the constants, the same formula can be applied to the application of the cheese yields of other cheeses. Next topic is manufacture of processed cheese. Processed cheese is a blend of cheese, water, and other permitted additional ingredients such as milk powder, cream, anhydrous milk fat, vegetable fat, whey proteins, caseinates, starches, and colorings. The viscosity, texture, pH, balance, and binding of the water and the fat content is achieved by the use of the variety of emulsifying salts. These includes the phosphates and citrates. Both spreadable and block type processed cheeses have similar ingredients, but the proportions of these and manufacturing procedure vary according to the end product. The process is the formulation and actual processing methods vary. However, a typical process can be summarized as follows. The cheese is washed and scraped, then chopped or ground into the smaller pieces. The pieces are melted in a scraped surface cooker, which blends the cheese with water, emulsifying agents, milk proteins, and other added ingredients. And these are the sometimes prepared as a separate premix. Typically, cheese spreads have 20 to 40% added water. Block or slice varieties contain less, typically 2 to 25% added water. Cooking at between 160 to 195 degree Fahrenheit or higher follows. The cooking time for cheese spread type products is between 10 to 15 minutes. For block types, 4 to 5 minutes is very common. Temperature is raised for pasteurization, typically around 265 to 300 degree Fahrenheit. The product is transferred to packing. With spread products, this would normally be combined with passing through an air inline mixture or homogenizer. Finally, the product is cooled. Spread products are cooled rapidly. Blocked sliced products are allowed to cool more slowly. This enables the desired texture and consistency to be obtained. Next topic is the accelerated ripening of cheese. That is, the ripening of cheese is a slow and consequently an expensive process as it involves heavy expenditure on refrigeration and labor apart from resulting in loss of product due to the microbial damage. Attempts are being made to reduce ripening period by accelerating the biochemical changes. Two important approaches employed or tried by the cheese industry for accelerating the cheese ripening process include technological and biotechnological. Technological approaches involve the manipulation of curing conditions such as the elevated temperatures or by increasing the moisture content of the cheeses and making use of these are as a cheese slurry. Cheese is ripened at elevated temperature, that is at 15 to 20 degrees Celsius for about 2 to 3 weeks, depending upon the required flavor intensity and on the type of cheese before transferring to the traditional normal temperature of ripening. As a result of elevated temperature, bacterial growth is stimulated, resulting in increased release of enzymes for bringing about enhanced proteolytic and lipolytic changes. However, controlling the temperature is very critical as even 1 degree Celsius rise in normal ripening temperature results in improper balance between proteolysis and lipolysis. Cheese slurries are prepared by raising the moisture content in the product by adding at various stages as per the convenience and incubating at higher temperatures for a few days. The slurries containing 40% total solids are being reported to have developed strong flavor in days rather than in months. However, these methods suffer due to the lack of control and often the overall flavor scores of such cheeses were depressed by a higher incidence of the off flavor. Moreover, with cheese slurry method, the contamination with undesirable organisms is quite possible because of the exposure to the air or due to the aeration during incubation. In view of such drawbacks, development of flavor through natural and rapid methods by biotechnological approaches for accelerating the ripening process is most promising. Biotechnical approaches involve addition of exogenous enzymes, that is proteinases, peptidases, and lipases, and the use of attenuated starter cultures, adjunct cultures, or genetically modified lactic cultures. First one is exogenous microbial enzymes. Addition of exogenous enzymes enhances the enzyme pool and thus can help in accelerating the ripening changes. These include the addition of beta-galactosidase, proteolytic enzymes, lipolytic enzyme, or the mixture of these. Next is lipases. Lipolysis is desirable in strongly flavored cheeses such as Italian and blue wined cheeses, but not in delicately flavored varieties like cheddar. Then mixtures of enzymes for proper and balanced flavor development in cheese. It is preferred to use a mixture of enzymes as they enhance the rate of multiple actions aimed at increasing of modifying particular aspects of cheese ripening instead of individual enzymes, which can control only one particular type of reaction during ripening. For example, for commercially available cheese enzyme, mixtures are acylase, nutrase, DCA50, etc. Next is the methods of enzyme additions. Enzymes are added to the milk or to the cheese curd at different stages. Addition of enzymes to milk in solution form helps in uniform mixing and final homogeneous distribution of enzymes in curd. It also ensures maximum interaction between coagulated particles and enzymes. The limitation of such additions is the loss of about 60 to 90% of enzymes in whey, as they are water solubles, contaminating the whey and thus making it unsuitable for the other purposes. Next is microencapsulation. This is another promising method of exploiting enzyme technology for accelerated cheese ripening, includes encapsulation of the enzymes. In this method, enzymes of interest is encapsulated in some type of artificial sacs, usually with the object of it protecting it from particular environment. The sac dissolves at the required target site and stage and releases the enzyme for its designated action. In cheese manufacture, microencapsulation helps in entrapment of more enzymes in cheese curd. Various substances have been used for encapsulation of enzymes, but most widely used ones are liposomes. These are artificial sacs or capsules in microvesicle form, consisting of a central aqueous core surrounded by one or more eccentric layers of fat. Liposomes are formed from phosphatidylcholine. These are the stable in milk for long time enough to be included in the curd and being processed along with the curd. Next is the manipulation of the starters. Many of the starter organisms produce proteinases and peptidases for accelerated cheese ripening. Addition of increased volume of starter culture or enhancing their growth is necessary for producing more proteinases or peptidases. But increasing the starter culture would affect the manufacturing of cheese and produce a typical cheese by increased production of acid, and hence modification of cheese starters is necessary. Next is attenuated starters. Attenuated starters are the modified lactic acid bacteria that lack the ability of producing sufficient level of acids during the cheese making, but provide active enzymes which can play a significant role in maturation and flavor development in the cheese. However, attenuated starters are always added to the cheese milk along with the regular starter cultures. Various approaches for the production of attenuated starters are heated or freeze shocked cells, solvent treated cells, natural mutant starters, lysosome treatment, spray drying, etc. Next is use of mutant starter strains. It consists of a lactase negative or proteinases negative or lactase negative proteinases positive derivatives, which have also been found to be significantly influences ripening changes in the cheeses. These mutant strains can be obtained either by selection from natural pool of mutant or through induction of mutation using X-rays or chemicals such as ethidium, bromide, nitrosoguanidine. The lactase negative strain of lab with higher proteinases and peptidases activity are the most promising ones. Extensive research on the use of these mutant strains by and large has been highly promising till date, but their commercial use is yet to be explored. Hope you all are satisfied with this session. This session is powered by Digital Version 2.0 Jyoti Vidyapeeth Women's University Jaipur. If you have any query, please mention it in a comment box. I will resolve them whenever we have a live session. Thank you so much for watching this video.